This video is about the very first Heroes of Might and Magic game, though I can't talk about it without comparing it to and referencing its sequels and the Hero series at large. At this point in time, I have been playing the Heroes of Might and Magic games for more than 25 years, which means I've been playing them for most of my life. I started with Heroes 2, which is still my favorite, then on to what is by far the most popular, Heroes 3, continuing through the unfortunately incomplete experiment of Heroes 4, then going on to relatively recently reassessing the merits of Heroes 5. You'll find my in-depth thoughts on each of these in their dedicated videos, which I'll link in the pinned comment. Believe it or not, I have even played Heroes 6 and 7, though those may never see a video from me because they were released past my current channel cutoff date of 2010. Also because they're Heroes 6 and 7. Despite my obvious interest, passion, and investment in the series, I have never really even thought about playing the original until now. And what I found, I can start describing as being a very well-working prototype for Heroes of Might and Magic 2. As well as, the fundamentals for the rest of the series. The original Heroes of Might and Magic greets you with bright colors and thematic music, showing you basically the entire cast of characters from the intro screen. I was very pleasantly surprised to realize the game actually comes with a tutorial, an exceedingly rare thing for the time, though you still need to have read the manual in order to find out about said tutorial and how to access it. At this point in gaming history, in 1995, we're still several years away from dedicated in-game tutorials as a general rule or tooltips. The manual then explains in detail how the game works and what the various things on screen mean, so you are meant to play through the tutorial as you're reading what's what from the manual. Most of the rest of the manual is then occupied by the actual story of Heroes of Might and Magic, which it does through the format of a series of letters sent by the game's hero, Lord Morglin Iron Fist, whom you can play as the Knight faction, to his former liege, Ragnar. The letters themselves are very fun and offer a lot of interesting context as to the inner workings of Enroth, but instead of summarizing them, I have made a companion video to this one, where I read and offer my own take on the character of Iron Fist. I'll link the companion video basically everywhere. 23rd day of the month of the Raven, common year 632. To my great and munificent lord, King Ragnar, from his loyal cousin, Lord Iron Fist, greetings. Since I already mentioned the Knight faction, the next thing which surprised me was that there are only 4 factions to play as: Knight, Barbarian, Sorceress, and Warlock. Having started with Heroes 2 and its 6 factions, which became a mainstay of the series going forward, this was a bit odd because my favorite faction to play as was Necromancer, but alas, Knight will do. The world map itself is very close to what it would become in Heroes 2, though things are maybe a bit lower res and some sprites have gotten makeovers in between the two. There's one map feature that stood out to me though, this tiny bush or tree. I don't know what exactly it's supposed to be, but it's either a small apple tree or the berry bush from Age of Empires. Either way, it's one thing that does not appear in Heroes of Might and Magic 2 maps. The sound effects are largely the same from its sequel. Music is really great indeed, and once you click on your first town, you'll start noticing more visual differences. The buildings again are chunkier and lower res, and the unit sprites are something separate altogether. As opposed to its sequel, Heroes of Might and Magic went for a quasi-realistic take on their fantasy setting. The unit sprites are illustrated with more realistic proportions and approach, meaning there's not a lot of artistic freedom with the designs themselves. This works for the Knight faction, because it only has humans on its roster, but when you see the enemy monsters, some of them look goofy. Look, there's no other way of putting it. Heroes of Might and Magic is basically the clip art of the Hero series. And again, this is me comparing them only to their sequel counterparts, which would get released a year after this one. The more fantastical designs of Heroes 2 simply look much more credible, if you allow me, than the more realistic take of the original. It's something they changed and improved, and it's a great thing they did. There's a few sprites I want to spotlight. First off, I think the Minotaurs probably look the worst, just because of the gradient and the stiff posture. Then there's the rogues, who look like a bunch of dudes who got hold of some discounted Zorro costumes for Halloween. The ghosts, I'm not gonna lie, are kinda creepy. I think they're actually creepier than the sequel ghosts.
Ghost, if you ever see a ghost, cut the motherfucker.
And the gargoyles are simply massive. The one thing I thought was inadvertently cool, for the gargoyles especially, is that all sprites, do not turn 180 degrees in combat. Instead, they simply move backwards. And while that looks awkward for most units, I think that would have been a cool thing to maintain for gargoyles in the sequels, because they're meant to be made of stone, so turning wouldn't be as natural for them. Anyway, the sprite design and sizes will take some time to get used to. Some will grow on you, like the paladin, and some you'll never like to see on the screen ever again, like the trolls for instance. Seems the one direction for the illustrator was to give the fantastical creatures really large and nasty noses. While I'm still on the subject of sprites, allow me to take a little bit of time to show you the dragon sprite. Spyro, that you, bro? If you're digging this video and want to dive deeper into the world of retro PC gaming, hit that subscribe button to get notified whenever I post a new video. Let's keep the flame of retro PC gaming alive together. Combat seems to be taking place on a 5x6 square grid, which you cannot see, but get a sense of by how the units move. Due to this considerably smaller combat area, obstacles play a much more important role, with some units not being able to move at all in some instances because there's an obstacle in front and there's friendly units up and down. When attacking castles, it can get a bit extra annoying because there is no moat nor drawbridge. All fortifications are a solid wall, so there is no quicker way into the castle. You have to wait for the walls to get destroyed. And this means that your ranged units will get absolutely obliterated while you wait. I also have to address how the fortifications look. To me, they look like birthday cake. Just look at these white melty walls and tell me you don't see marzipan. Or gingerbread in this case. Spells are still present, of course, though they work very differently than they would from the sequel onwards. Spell power still affects the strength of a spell, but your knowledge doesn't increase your mana pool. There's no mana pool here. Instead, your knowledge decides how many charges of any spell you learn you can cast. Somewhat and sort of like spell slots in D&D, but in Heroes of Might and Magic, these charges don't refresh the next day, nor do they refresh the next Monday, as you might expect from a Heroes game. No, they only refresh when you visit a town with a mage guild. As mentioned earlier, the Knight faction campaign is the canon story of the game, though you can choose to play as any of the other factions. Fortunately, the campaign missions are where Heroes of Might and Magic has aged the most. While the missions themselves are interesting and the maps are of varying dimensions and makeup, dealing with the computer enemies gets really tiring. Missions are very much trial and error, till you learn how the computer acts and counteract it for each map, which to a certain extent is fair. This type of approach was a big part of gameplay design back when there was considerably less choice in what you have to play, as well as how easy it is for you to play something else. And I do cut older games a generous amount of slack for this. What I don't cut slack for, however, is most missions in Heroes of Might and Magic turn into interminable slogs of you slowly chipping away at the computer's swarm of heroes, constantly retaking your towns and not allowing you to actually enjoy the map exploration part of the game. The only real solution is to always have a hero parked inside the town and also keep a decent amount of troops there. This will deter the computer on most occasions, but it will also make your progress much slower through the map, thus losing out on free resources and XP possibilities. Honestly, you don't really need to play it. Or at least not play it all the way through, unless you're a crazy hardcore completionist even beyond myself. For most of you interested in gaming history and the history of the Hero series, I think you can play it for a couple of hours on some skirmish maps, enough to experience the massive sprites, the combat, and the lack of hero secondary skills, because there is no secondary skills in this one, and you'll have experienced the best parts of the game while avoiding the time-consuming and annoying ones. Heroes of Might and Magic was a success at launch, both critically and financially, which meant we would get a sequel. A much better looking and polished sequel, which in turn did even better, this guaranteeing yet another sequel and the birth of a much loved series till fuck Ubisoft got a hold of it. In case you do want to play Heroes of Might and Magic, you can get it and the rest of the Hero series till the 5th one from GOG, and you can give me a hand by doing it through my GOG link in the pinned comment. If you enjoy this and want to see more like it, click on the video on the left of your screen. If you'd like to support me, thank you. There's a link to Patreon on the right of the screen. I've been Stephen Ansons, thank you for watching and good luck out there.